So it is some real basic stuff. I know there's some waste people here, which would be great. These numbers are not mine. They are taken, and they might be a year or 2 or 3 old. Especially when I get into New Hanover specific numbers, they might not be exactly right. So please, interrupt me if those of you that are involved do see some numbers. But this is kind of the boiling the frog into basically trying to get us to where we want to be and pay less for garbage, more for recycling, and all the benefits that have finally come a long way in the United States and regionally as to the benefits that we're going to see from that sort of swap and increased recycling. So again, this is kind of going back to grade school, but we're putting it somewhere. These are, besides spaceships, and we don't mention illegal dumping on this sort of list because that does happen. Depending on where you are in the world, it could be 1 or 2% sort of total tonnage. Who knows if you're burying your garbage in your backyard? It's tough to find out. But other than that, these are kind of where it goes. New Hanover County, this area has been one of the most progressive areas with the facility that John runs over there. And it's been really neat to watch sort of as it goes through. Hopefully this sort of gives a good background as to why what happened a little bit and really what the potential is for an amazing facility like that. So these are the places kind of where the garbage goes. The takeaway is municipalities have to deal with that every day. It's got to go somewhere. They're trying to make it pay for itself. So what can they do? So this is, I like to see this. The numbers can be from 59 to 75, depending on whose numbers you pick, that go to the landfill. This is United States, big picture. I'll get into sort of regional and then smaller picture. Waste to energy is between, depending on who you talk to and whose report it is, 7 to 11-ish%. But most people agree it's around a little bit less than 10%. And recycling, composting. So the real good news, if there is any, is that we've got a huge potential. So really, obviously, waste reduction is going to come from a lot of recycling, waste to energy. Those two things have tons of room to grow. We have not hit any ceilings at all. I look at this every week. It just reminds me as to what's in the garbage. This is nationally. We're going to see little differences around the country. In red are the 3 easiest things to just sort of really take out of the stream when we have the right infrastructure. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I like to see that. Paper, it boggles my mind. The numbers are hilarious. If we get paper out of the stream, that's 1/3 of the weight. Right? This is tonnage. This is weight, not by volume. So almost all of these things can be recycled if we've got an economically viable and sustainable thing to be able to put it on somewhere else. That's the trick. These are just some sort of fun facts. We produce a lot of garbage in the United States. The average is, depending on which report you look at, between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds per household of household garbage per person per year. It's crept up a lot. Just as we get more affluent, we buy more stuff and throw more stuff away. And the middle one is kind of the huge, for me, takeaway. This is the 5% number of the world's population. We generate 40% of the world's waste. So again, all the good positive takeaways that we have really easy steps to take in the better direction. On average in the U.S., John mentioned some numbers. $50 to send to landfill, $65 to $70 to incinerate. That doesn't account for the fact that you can sell power back in a waste-to-energy plant. That's just a straight number. It's going to be an efficient, well-run machine is going to be, hopefully breaking even, paying for itself. Packaging material makes up 1/3 of our dumps as we know it now. And that's, again, just sort of a big picture thing that I like to know in the back of my mind when we move into a municipality. We're not worried about what's already in the landfill, but it sure helps knowing what's still going into the landfill. North Carolina is better than the country a little bit as far as average garbage goes. Some takeaways from this, or these numbers could be for anything, but 95% have access in North Carolina to plastic bottle recycling as an example. We only recycle about 18%. Again, we've got lots of room to grow. North Carolina residents throw out enough glass to fill 13 miles of tractor trailers a month. That glass, I believe the number is $41 million a year worth of recyclable glass in North Carolina. And so there's, again, I brought all of the resources with me. It's just fun reading. Circle the Earth twice a year, fill dumpsters lining the entire North Carolina coastline every month, fill dumpsters that reach as high as Mount Mitchell every 3.5 hours. That's how much garbage we're throwing away in North Carolina. It seems ridiculous. Now that includes, that's all garbage. Half of that is C&D, or construction and demolition garbage, which we don't have a lot of control of when someone tears down a house. That's counted in some of these big, scary numbers. But it's generally about half of that. Some more numbers, a couple-year-old numbers. That's how much North Carolina recycles, 613,000 tons. If we could, just by doing that, we removed 165,000 vehicles from the roads, the equivalent of not burning 2 million barrels of oil, not using 102 million gallons of gas, not cutting down that much acres of forest, 82,000 households worth of electricity. So I'm just trying to get that point across that we've got lots of valuable stuff in our garbage. This is, again, this isn't a you know, a recycling scream or anything, but this is ultimately what it's going to boil down to, and I'll loop back around. This one is a great one, stolen from the CFEDC. They're sort of a Carolinas cooperative group that helps put private entities and governments together to make money on recycling. So if we could just kick our number up 10%, that's that many jobs, that much income, and that much revenue. So those numbers, we move into municipalities and we can boost recycling 100%, 200%, 400% if they've been doing a really bad job. Those numbers sound great. But at just 10%, we've got some pretty neat numbers popping up. So I'm bringing it down regionally. New Hanover County's in red. That's annual total pounds per capita. And you mentioned 200,000 pounds. I believe this is set at just over 240,000. It's a couple years old. And so that's just a good thing to see. So here's the country: North Carolina, New Hanover County. I picked Charleston County, South Carolina. I mean, it's got more people, but again, it's per capita. So we're equivalent everywhere. The best coastal county has some infrastructure, so they're down. This is tonnage per person thrown away per year. And then these are kind of the usual suspects. Orange and Buncombe County do a pretty good job now. To let you know, right about here are, you know, a lot of municipalities that have been stuck for 20 years or have been passing laws. San Francisco, Portland, they're down at the, 250 pounds per person a year. But that's, again, those have been a lot of laws, a lot of time passing down. So this is where we get the elected officials. They all start nodding their heads. I won't go through every single one of them, but this is, every single city has at least some of these issues and challenges. We've discussed some of them already today. You can't permit a new landfill in North Carolina. It's practically impossible. Incinerator capacity, we hope to outgrow, an incinerator that we've paid for. We want to use that to its fullest extent. Pay for itself immediately, but then you've got to build another one, which is a good thing. Poorly designed residential fee structures. A lot of cities haven't kept up. Wilmington, the city of Wilmington's done a better than average job of keeping up with the cost. Line item showing you, hey, you're paying $300 a year for garbage pickup. A bunch of challenges, and then of course environmental challenges. So, that's just a classic. Every city, county, state government has the same issue. This is kind of the meat of the chat is what are people doing around the country and regionally. It is all basic stuff that we've already heard about. The biggest ones are these 5. The education of citizens, you can do a lot and get nowhere, or you can do a lot and get somewhere. There's goods and bads. Reducing waste at home, that's the source reduction. And as John mentioned, that's the best, easiest way to do it. The man can come down and say, you have to do something. You cannot throw bottles away, you cannot throw this away, or you have to recycle. That's the M word we call it. They don't like, that's mandating things. Recycling more effectively, that's where all of this, that's where all the fun really begins. And then pay as you throw sort of is the biggest one that all of the municipalities and governments have implemented. That's the low-hanging fruit. It's these trash metering or pay-as-you-throw systems. That's just besides source reduction, that has the most immediate effect on garbage reduction and increasing recycling. I'm not going to go through all of these. Educating citizens, we've all been around it. We grew up with Earth Days. There's lots of things being done. Hopefully they're being done appropriately. We've got source reduction. So we know exactly what this means. It's not buying something with all of the packaging. It's reusing things. It's composting. They call it pre-consumer and post-consumer. This is pre-consumer. You're making decisions before